Hello, hello, and welcome to Tween Talk Live. Today, we're going to talk about how to nurture your tween to become an independent learner with the Empowerment Matrix. I'm Marina Gabor, founder of Tween Talk, empowering moms to raise independent kids, and also the Life Skills Club, which is opening doors on September 8th. Super excited about that coming up. Now, stick around today. You're going to get practical advice, specific actions you can take to set your tween up to become more independent in their learning this year. And at the end, I will let you know how you can get your tween on the wait list for that Life Skills Club that opens in just over a month. If you are joining me live, please type hashtag live. I'd love to say hello. Glad you're here. And if you are joining me on the replay, please type hashtag replay. Let me know you watched the episode. Give me your biggest takeaway at the end. Super glad that you have made it here. Now, think about this upcoming school year. It's approaching quickly. Maybe we don't want to be thinking about it yet, but here we are, beginning of August. As it stands right now, will you be writing a to-do list for your tween every day? Will you be writing a to-do list for your tween every day? I know I've been hearing things and people saying, oh, I need to write out the list. Is that you? Is that you? Now, if you are ready to stop hovering over your tween's shoulder, if you are ready to let them take ownership of some of their assignments, of some of their learning outcomes this school year, you are going to love the Empowerment Matrix. And we'll get into that a little bit today. So, number one, you're going to introduce your tween to your favorite coffee shop. And you think, what? What does that have to do with my kid becoming an independent learner? My favorite coffee shop? I'm not sure I want to introduce them to my favorite coffee shop, but maybe I can get my favorite drink. So, okay, keep going. Let's hear what this is all about. All right. Here's a reason for you to introduce your tween to your favorite coffee shop. You are going to take them on a fun coffee date with a purpose. And you're going to tell them the purpose ahead of time. You're not going to broadside them, like you're not throwing this on them without any preparation. They are going to know that you're going to go on a date to this coffee shop for the express purpose of talking about the upcoming school year. And they might go, really? So tell them you'll buy them a treat, bribe them. It is kind of bribery, but there's going to be a good outcome. They are going to enjoy the freedom that comes from having this date at the coffee shop. So convince them to go with you. They get to be part of the planning this year. Maybe up until this point, they've just done whatever curriculum you've set out. If you're homeschooling, they're in the public system, they just go to school, they do the stuff. They're not really in charge of their learning at all. As they are moving through their tweens, it's time for them to take some ownership of their learning. And it has to be taught. We can't just assume, oh, well, you have the books, study, you know what to do. So we're going to teach them, we're going to be intentional, and we're going to make it something that we can look back on later and they'll say, yeah, my mom took me out to this coffee shop and we started talking about the school year and how it's going to go. And eventually, like this will become a regular thing. And they'll go, oh yeah, I really want to do these things this year. I'm going to talk to mom about that when we have our date. Now, if they're not part of that plan, you're going to be pushing all year. They're going to have a lot of trouble taking ownership of the learning because they weren't involved. So it's time to set them up for success now. And who doesn't love a trip to the coffee shop? An excuse to go. Totally legitimate excuse. So now let's dive a little bit into this empowerment matrix. How can we use that to nurture our tweens to become independent learners? As I was thinking about the core foundational life skills, like what are the core things that kids have to have that everything else kind of goes out of? And there are three fundamental skills that will kind of make or break your tween's quest and ability to become an independent learner. These skills make up the empowerment matrix. And when you nurture your kids in these skills, they'll be empowered to take ownership of their learning. And you will step more into the role of coach. So you've been doing some hardcore parenting during those child rearing years where you're like just telling your kids what to do. Do this, do this, do this. Now in the tween years, we're switching and shifting to more of the role as coach. So you were still the parent, the buck still stops with you as the parent, but now you get to coach your tweens through this super exciting time where they are still looking to you for help and advice and what to do, but they're also spreading their wings. And you're going to coach them through that, and it's going to be great. All right. The three core skills we have: communication, organization, and critical thinking. So think about those three things: communication, organization, and critical thinking. And think about what happens if people don't have those skills. Things fall apart. If you don't have those skills, you can't be an independent learner. Like, it's super difficult. So we're going to nurture our tweens with those skills. You'll get a feel for how to set up this foundation. And then that is the start of getting your tween to be an independent learner. So let's start with communication. And as you're having this chat with your tween, and we're going to talk about a perfect day in a bit, but you are communicating and they're like, oh, this is a new way to communicate. Now, they're not going to say that to you, but they might be a little surprised. Oh, you're asking me for my opinion? Oh, now I have to have an opinion? Okay, what does that look like? So you might be asking them questions and they might go, I don't know. And they legitimately might not have any idea. They might not have thought of it before. Plus, depending where your tween is on that, like the tween years are kind of this 9 to 12, 13 edging, maybe a little bit later, depending on their development. And what happens is they move from concrete thinking, thinking about like things they can touch and feel and see, to more abstract and planning and thinking ahead and critical thinking and all of those things. They need some of this abstract thinking. So when you ask them, what do you want to do? Or what do you think about this? It could be that they are just barely moving into this abstract thinking and they're like, I don't know. And they legitimately don't know. So we have to help them, guide them, show them, oh, this is how we can think about the future. All right. So we're going to set up some expectations for how we're going to communicate during the school year. And yes, like actually talk about how are we going to talk about assignments? How are we going to talk about expectations? How are we going to make decisions about what we are and are not going to do during the school year? And how can your tween talk to you about what they'd like to do? Can they talk about it anytime? Do you have times that are set up? Like sometimes they might feel like, oh, I don't want to bother you. So it's really important to clearly communicate that you are available. They can come and ask you questions. If they're, maybe you're working from home and you're homeschooling, you're like, okay, well, I have set times. If we're going to talk about stuff, let's talk about it during this time because I'm working during this time. The key here is that you are setting up the expectations. Everybody knows this is how we're going to communicate. And this is an ongoing thing. As they take more responsibilities for their projects, assignments, coursework, all of those things, How are you going to communicate about it? How can you set it up so that you are going to remind them less? You're going to nag them less. You might set up trigger words that are reminders instead of asking them outright. Um, but that is also mm, that's a deeper lesson for another day. But all of these things have to do with communication. So, number one, communication ties closely with critical thinking because when you ask them a question and you're communicating, you're asking them to think. And some of that is critical thinking as they're thinking about, like, okay, what do I need to get done? How much of a priority is that? That's a critical thinking task, figuring that out. And then it spills over into organization, which includes planning and time management and all of those types of things. So, this is why it is a matrix. So, we have this communication, critical thinking, organization, and we have a foundational level, basic level skill level. And then there's a bunch of stuff once they learn the basics that we add onto that, and they're all interconnected. All right. So there you are at the coffee shop. You're having a conversation. You're going to talk about the school year. It's going to be a little bit structured. Like there is a purpose to it. You want to end up with an idea of what does their perfect day look like? And you think, I know what my kid's perfect day looks like. It looks like I'm gaming all day. And okay, so laugh, move forward and go, okay, so you really like gaming. Great. Probably can't do that all day, but let's see how you can do some of what you like to do. So here's where your job is to know what do they need to accomplish during the school year because they don't know that yet. If you set this up and do these kind of things during their tweens, by the time they hit their teens, they will be strong, independent learners. They will be able to say, oh, I need to learn these things. I'm going to break it down this way. I'm going to put it in my schedule this time. And so I can be done by this due date. I know because it works. My daughters are there. So we're going to create this perfect day. And you can say, okay, so you're going to have these subjects. What kind of extracurricular do we have? What family commitments do we have? What are all of the things? And you're going to have a big list and go, okay, so somehow these things have to get done. Now, this is where you come alongside them as the coach. And if this is the first time you've ever done something like this with your tween, they're going to feel like they're drowning. So you're going to have to do a lot of coaching to help them come up with their perfect day. Also, they might be completely surprised that they have a say in when and how they do things. And you might think, yeah, then they're not going to do them. Trust the process. It's a learning process. You're going to be coaching them. You're not just throwing them in the deep end and leaving them there. It's kind of like when kids learn how to ice skate and they hang on to those, it looks like a walker and they're skating with this walker and they're sort of learning and they can't really do it very well, but they're skating. That's kind of what you're doing. You're providing some structure for them so that they can make their perfect day. And then you're going to look at, okay, so we have this available time. Here's the times that we're committed. Here's all the things that you want to do. Now we have a little bit of a problem, and they're going to see that problem because it's there on the paper, black and white. They go, oh, I want to do 5 extracurricular activities. I'm looking at the calendar. These are the only spots that are left. Now we need a little critical thinking coming in going, what is really important? What do I want to do? How does this affect everybody in the family? Who's going to have to be running around? You're going to be thinking about all of those things. Now, we do want to keep that coffee meeting to like 45 minutes because they will lose focus. This is a new thing. It's taking a lot of brain power, and they're going, whoo, taking on some responsibility. But the only way you are going to get them to buy in, get them to take ownership of their learning, is by having them involved in this planning process. You want to start not having to resort to your positional power as a parent and just saying, this is what I say and this is what we're going to do. And say, here are the options, of which you like all of them. And then they can choose from that. So they feel empowered. They are able to start making some choices. They go, okay, so from this list, I have to fill this day. And they're going to come up with their perfect day. They're like, yes, this would be the perfect day if I could do things in this order, because I feel good this time of the day and I like doing that. I want to do this over here because it doesn't take as much energy. And they might not know all of those things yet. And this perfect day you'll iterate on it during the school year. But they will take ownership of it, feel empowered, and start taking control of their learning. So then the next step is do a gut check. So they've got this perfect day, maybe this perfect week, if you can get that far, but at least in this one coffee shop day, get a perfect day so that you have something to create the other days around. This is the starting point. And then do a gut check and get them to do a gut check too. And what I mean by that is look at it, see, is there any white space in the day? Because life happens. We don't do math and then immediately jump into something else. There are those little bits of time between. So have you actually allowed time for transitions? Have you allowed time for eating? Eating takes longer than you think. Have you allowed time for breaks? If you notice they didn't put any breaks in, or they put too many breaks in, those are things you can talk about. So do a gut check. And this is where you look at it and you literally go, can I actually do that? Can my tween actually handle this kind of a schedule right now? And ask them that as well. Do you think this is reasonable? Like, when you look at it, close your eyes, imagine yourself going through that kind of a day. How does it feel? Now that might feel kind of seem sort of like, woo, kind of out there. Like, why do I have to feel what I think about this day? But here's the thing. If in your gut, you're like, ugh, I don't know. If I say, they tell me they're going to do 90 minutes of math and they don't even really like math, but they're convinced that they can get it done faster if they do that, then talk about it. Adjust it. But whatever that perfect day is, when the school year starts, you're going to practice that. You're going to take that perfect day, make it into the perfect week, make sure all your stuff is in. You're going to have to do some more work after that. This is the beginning. Run it for at least 2 weeks, because you won't know for 2 weeks if it's actually going to work. It's going to be awkward. It's going to feel forced. It's going to be like, oh yeah, I have to do this. It's not going to flow easily in the first week. By that second week, you'll start to notice, oh yeah, okay, this I'm going to have to change, but don't make changes yet. Wait for 2 weeks and then you can reassess. But for today, we need to work on getting your tween to the point where they're going to take some ownership. You're going to take them out to a coffee shop. You're going to go for coffee. You're going to discuss the school year. Say, these are all the things we have to do. This is the time frame that we have to do this is the time we have to get it done. How are we going to do that? Let's design one perfect day as a starting point. That's all you want to do during that meeting. They are going to feel empowered. They're going to feel like, oh, I am growing up. I'm taking charge. I'm getting more responsibility. And then the flip side of that, just as a side note, if they are starting to take this responsibility, then as they are asking you to do some other things independently, consider they've taken responsibility here. What privilege balances that? What privilege balances that? All right, there we have it. Set up your coffee shop date, 45 minutes. Make sure you know what all the things are that they need to get done. Bring a planner with you. Get them their favorite treat. Make it a fun thing. Don't worry if they say, I don't know. You're going to be coaching them. So at the end, they have a perfect day. They're probably not going to want to talk about it after. That's okay. Then you take that perfect day, figure out the rest of the schedule, talk to them about it, say, hey, remember you planned your perfect day? Here's what a schedule might look like. What do you think? And continue that conversation. So I'm curious, what is your biggest takeaway today? What is something that you're like, oh, that's how I can get them to do that? I hope that it sparked some ideas for you when you're thinking about your particular tween and their learning needs and what your schedule looks like and so on. I really hope it was felt helpful. And then, if you are interested in learning more about the Life Skills Club, where each week tweens are going to come together online, so virtually, we will learn a micro life skill, figure out how they are going to put it into practice. They will leave each week with something actionable that they can do to become a better communicator, to help them with critical thinking, to help them with organization. So one of those things in that empowerment matrix. If you'd like to find out more, type hashtag waitlist and I will get some information to you. So I want to thank you for joining me for this episode of Tween Talk Live. Hope it was helpful, and pick a date for that coffee shop date with your tween.